Hey guys, it's Katie. Welcome back to my channel. I am so glad that you are here. Today's video, which you can probably already tell by the title, is one that I do every month. So today we are going to be talking about all the books I read in September. I read about 8 books in September, which is kind of where I've been at for a while now, but I would definitely say I had a pretty good reading month. I have 1 5-star in here and then a lot of high 4 stars. So let's just go ahead and get right on into my September wrap up. The first book I read this month, I actually started at the end of August and then finished at the beginning of September, and it is a long one. That book is A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This is the 3rd book in the ACOTAR series. I actually have the entire series right here behind me, and I'm gonna be reading the novella and then A Court of Silver Flames in the month of October because they're on my October TBR, and I am so looking forward to finishing that series. If you guys are interested too on my October TBR, go ahead and check out that video. I did a little something different this month and I really liked it, so I think I'm gonna keep doing it. Anyways, getting on to my thoughts about ACOWAR. I can without a doubt say that this is my favorite from the series yet. I rated this one a 5-star, but honestly, it might be a 6-star. I actually have a reading vlog of me reading this too, so if you have read this series and want a spoilered version of somebody reading it so you can watch all my reactions and stuff like that in real time, definitely go check that out. Again, like I said though, a 5-star. I can't really share much because it is the 3rd book in a series, but this book obviously talks a lot about war, if you couldn't tell, and it was just so beautifully tragic in all the right ways. I absolutely adored this book, and I felt super connected to the characters throughout the entirety of the book, especially because I've already gotten to know them already in like the 1st and 2nd books. So now it's just like going back to hang out with like my friends, you know what I mean? Because I've already read about them, we already know each other, we're just going on another journey together. This book is the last book of the original trilogy too, and it's the last book in Feyre's point of view, so it's not going to be just about Rhys and Feyre anymore. And I'm very interested to see, because Sarah J. Maas actually did like a live show or something like that for Crescent City 3 or something. No, actually, I think it was for the special editions of Crescent City 1 and 2 coming out at Barnes & Noble or something. Although, I don't really know. All I know is that she did a live show. And in that live show, even though I didn't watch it, I saw a ton of coverage on it on TikTok, so if you guys are interested in it, go check it out there. She ended up announcing that she is working on the next ACOTAR book, which I am so excited about. And I'm very interested to see what she does with the characters, where she takes it, and it just makes me want to finish the series even more than I already do, which is a lot. And that's all I can really say about this one. 5-star, 6-star, honestly. We love her. We did have one book that was kind of the outlier of the month to take it back to 7th grade math, and that is Once More with Feeling by Alyssa Sussman. Now, let me just say, I really liked her first book that she came out with last year. Maybe it wasn't her first book, but it was the first book with like these kind of looking covers. I have it over here. It's called Funny You Should Ask. I thought that was super cute, but I also read it at the beginning of my reading journey, so I'm wondering if that's why I liked it a lot. I'm not really sure. This book is about the 2 main characters named Katie Rose and Calvin, and it's all in Katie Rose's point of view. Basically, her and Calvin meet at a summer camp. They already have history, and then it turns out Calvin's in a boy band and Katie Rose turns into this big pop star, and they go on tour together. And this is a second chance romance, so we're getting her point of view while she's on tour back then, and then we're getting the now point of view, which now they hate each other, or at least she hates him. And he's actually directing a Broadway show that he's in, and that was like the camp they went to. It was a theater camp, and they both absolutely love theater. Like, they loved performing and doing other stuff like that with other things, but Broadway was always the dream for them. I'll be honest, I did not like Katie Rose at all. She was kind of an insufferable character, and I get it. It was kind of realistic in a way though, because she was super like self-sabotagey, but I just could not stand it. The way she talked sometimes to Calvin and even to her friend, it just like really threw me off. Like, I did not like her, and all the choices that she made just like didn't. I also feel like the story just kind of fell flat for me. The pacing was kind of weird, and they were basically telling like 3 parts of a then and now. So like I said, there was camp, there was tour, and then the Broadway show, and you basically got all 3 chunks of that. And even though majority of the story was whenever they like grew up and did the Broadway show and then going back to the tour, I found myself almost wanting this to be like a childhood friends to lovers. I really wish she would have honestly just focused more on them at camp. I don't know why I found that more enticing than them on tour. Honestly, you could have honestly taken out that whole thing on tour and just done the childhood friends to lovers to them going and being in a Broadway show together. Especially because it was a camp setting. Like, that's just so cute, you know? This book also had one of my least favorite tropes ever in it. as well. The same trope that's in Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. And honestly, I had trouble rating it because it had all those things, but it was also about theater, which I grew up doing and I absolutely love. So like I got all the references and I thought a lot of it was like very cute, and it kind of just added another layer of like connection with the characters. I did like Cal and her best friend more than I liked Katie Rose for sure. And even though I didn't like Katie Rose, I still like connected with her. Also, I don't know why I'm calling her Katie Rose. That's like her stage name. Her real name is Kathleen. So there was that. And then I also just really enjoyed the writing, even though the story was weirdly paced. Alyssa Sussman's writing is just really good, and it's like a fast-paced read. So even though I really didn't like the contents, I still flew through this book. I think my final rating choice is a 2.5, somewhere in there, because there were things that I really didn't like about it, but there were other things that just kind of like push it up a little bit more than a 2 for me at least. And I mean, books are all about like personal opinion and stuff. And also, can we just talk about her covers? They are so stinking cute. Okay, the third book I read this month was actually The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. And honestly, I'm not really sure what my rating is in this moment in time, but it'll always be over here, like every other book that I actually tell you my rating is, and all the other information on it always is over here. Or over, you know, maybe I switched it up. Maybe it's over here. I don't know. Anyways, yes, I read The Hunger Games, and you're probably thinking like, Katie, why? Like, the series has been out forever. I have watched all the movies. Why would I want to read the book? As you guys already know, a prequel book just came out, I think about a year ago, and the movie of that book is coming out this November. So I wanted to read the first 3 books to kind of get ready for the movie, and then maybe read the prequel. I'm not entirely sure if I'll be able to get to it, but I at least wanted to like refresh my mind on Katniss's story, just because I loved The Hunger Games growing up. And I'm not sure if I said it already, but I did not read the books, but growing up, the movies were like everything. I was growing up in that like prime age to watch all of them, and I just remember going to the premiere and it was just such a good feeling, and the movies just have so much nostalgia for me. So I just really wanted to read the books and see what they were like, see if they were like similar, see if they had the same feeling, and they were. If you don't know about The Hunger Games, it's a dystopian type novel. Basically, there's a bunch of districts, and Katniss, our main character, is in District 12. And every year, one boy and one girl from each district gets chosen as a champion for The Hunger Games, basically where these children just fight to the death until one of them wins and then becomes a victor, and then everything in their lives is like fine. And most of the time at these districts, they don't really have that great of a life. They're kind of poor. They're just kind of like working, and all of these districts work together to serve the capital, and the capital never has to put their kids into the Hunger Games. But the capital is so fancy and elegant, and they have all this money, and it's just super crazy to see how different the capital is than the other districts. I'll be honest, I enjoyed reading this a lot more than I thought I was going to. Again, the movies are super nostalgic for me, so I don't know why I wasn't thinking that I was going to enjoy it, but the books just brought a totally different piece. I guess like it was the perfect way to refresh my memory, other than like obviously watching the movies. And it makes me want to rewatch the movies just because the books and the movies are so similar. I mean, this is just a book thing in general, but there's just so much more like details in books obviously that movies don't really get to, because movies can only be so long. And I just loved hearing a more detailed, in-depth description of Katniss's journey and Peeta's journey too through the Hunger Games. And I do have to say, these books are as good as everybody said they were back then. I wish I would have read them as a kid, but I didn't like reading, so that's okay. We'll just read them now. I actually did start the second one, Catching Fire, but we had to put a little pause on the Hunger Games reading series train because my Libby card, well, not my Libby card, my library card went out. So I have to go fix that. Not really sure when that'll get done. So we'll see if I can finish my reread or not. Who knows? The next book I read in the month of September is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. This is my first Abby Jimenez book, and let me just say, I was pretty surprised with how much I enjoyed this. I know a lot of people talk about her books and say that they're just the perfect rom-com-y book, but sometimes rom-coms can be a little bit, I don't really know how to describe it. I don't really know where I was going with that, actually, to be honest. But I did enjoy this book. This book is about a girl named Alexis, and one day her car breaks down and she ends up in this small town of Wakan, and then this guy named Daniel helps her fix her car, and then she's sent on her way. She's also a doctor. She lives in the big city, but while she's in the small town of Wakan, her and Daniel end up having like a little moment, and whenever she's back at home, she can't stop thinking about Daniel, even though he is a little bit younger than her. I believe he's 28 and she's 36, 34? Can't remember. So there is a little bit of an age gap trope, but throughout the book, Alexis ends up going back and forth from the city to Wakan, and it's just crazy too too because she is a doctor, and then Daniel kind of lives this small town life. He makes furniture. He's not like a professional carpenter or anything like that, and he's the mayor of this little town. He owns this Airbnb. Like, he's really not making the big bucks, but she is. She lives this high life. Like, she wears like $12,000 dresses, has a bunch of pairs of Louboutins. She can like throw away money left and right. And this whole book is dual POV, by the way, so we do get Alexis's and Daniel's point of view. And the whole book is them just trying to figure out how they work because they just don't think that they will, because their lives are so incredibly different. Again, like I said, I did enjoy this a lot more than I thought I would. I definitely want to read more Abby Jimenez books in the future as well. I feel like this book was just a very solid 4-star for me. I enjoyed it a lot, and I liked the story and all the characters, and I don't know, it was just a very cutesy, happy, fun read. The next book I read in September was 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This book is in the point of view of 7 different people, so needless to say, it was a little bit overwhelming. This book is about 6 criminals who get hired by the government to kind of do their dirty work, and they're sent to another country to capture and help this scientist escape. And basically the government picked these criminals because they couldn't do it themselves, because if they did it, like, it would have waged a whole entire war. I don't know if I couldn't handle it, or maybe it was just because I was reading another book at the same time. Maybe this is just a book that you have to only read this book. I don't really know what I'm trying to say. I was heavily confused for like the first 300 pages of this entire book. Once we got towards the end, I was super enticed, super intrigued. I was like, ooh, I like these characters. I like where this is going. And my adrenaline was pumping. I was connected to them, all that sorts of stuff like I normally am throughout a book. But it just took a lot longer to connect to these characters and for me to really get into it. And I think that is just because we got so many different point of views and storylines of so many different people. It just started off so slow for me during the middle and the beginning, but the ending was really good. And it's gonna lead right into the next book, which is Crooked Kingdom. So I'm interested to see how I feel about the second book in the series, since I already know the characters and I'm already acclimated with them and stuff. So I'm almost thinking whenever I get into the second book, it'll just feel like the end of this book throughout the entire thing. I can't remember what I rated this one. I think I'm gonna rate this one a 3.5 just because the beginning and the middle were just a lot to comprehend, and I just felt kind of dumb. This is the first time I've ever felt like really dumb in a fantasy book too. So I think a solid 3.5, but hopefully the second one surprises me and I like it a lot. Okay, the next book is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This book was like a breath of fresh air to me. Such a sweet surprise because I really wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. But when I tell you this was almost a 5-star, I couldn't put it down. I stayed up super late reading it. I was sobbing the entire time and having complete, honestly, just a visceral reaction to this entire book. I think I started sobbing during like the first 50 pages even, which honestly isn't unheard for me. I don't know where I was going with that, sorry. Basically, Florence Day is a ghostwriter for this really famous author, and she's having trouble finishing this last book because she wrote romance novels and she doesn't really believe in romance anymore. And she has this deadline for her book and she is nowhere near close to finishing it. And actually the editor that she used to have is gone, so now she has a new editor. His name is Benji Andor, and he's like, girl, what are we doing? Like, you gotta turn it in. So her job and everything is on the line, and then all of a sudden something super tragic happens and she has to go back to her hometown to be with her family. And this is just, I can't really say anything else other than that it is a beautifully done kind of spooky love story. I mean, it's called The Dead Romantics, so maybe that's hint enough. It was just so wholesome and cute and rom-com-y, but also the perfect rom-com for fall. I will never stop talking about this book, especially during the fall time. I absolutely loved it. I rated it a 4.75. There was something that I really wish would have happened, and I just can't stop thinking about what I wished would have happened in that specific moment. It just would have made this book complete to me, and I just needed that for it to be a 5-star. And this book is just so cute, and I loved it so much. I don't know what else to say other than I loved it. The next book I read was The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This book has kind of been going around booktube lately, and it's been widely talked about even though it's been around for a really long time. My friend Abby actually said she read this whenever she was in middle school, so that's kind of funny that like we're just kind of now getting hype around it. If you haven't heard about The Naturals, it is basically YA Criminal Minds. This book follows our main character Cassie, and the whole thing is in her perspective. And Cassie has this natural gift for reading minds, so she's sent to be a natural, which kind of like I already said, it's like Criminal Minds, but they're all these like 16, 17, 18-year-old kids who have all the special gifts and who are solving cold cases, but they're not like in the field. Well, maybe I'm not gonna say that. Anyways, this book was super cute, super fun, perfect for the fall time. Again, giving those spooky vibes because it is kind of like a mystery thriller. Super fast paced too. Jennifer Lynn Barnes also wrote the Inheritance Games, which I haven't read yet, but I really want to. If you're in any kind of a slump, like you're just not really feeling like reading, definitely recommend her writing any book that she's ever written, just because it's just so fast paced. I finished this in 2 days. Like, I don't normally finish books in 2 days, but this kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time. It really got to the point. It was just so good, and I liked it a lot. I rated this a 4 stars. There are 3 other books in the series, and then a novella at the end too, which I am really excited to get into, and there's also a little love triangle subplot in here too. I really liked our main character and the way her brain kind of worked. It was really interesting, and seeing her solve a case was just a super interesting concept too. I don't know why, but I've never really read anything like this before, and the more I think about it, just the more I want to read the next ones, just because it kept me on the edge of my seat, like I said, the entire time. It was just so good. I don't know what else to say. Okay, and then the very last book I read this month was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I actually just finished this yesterday, and this was on my September TBR, but I didn't think I was gonna get to it, so I put it on my October TBR. And the reason why I thought I wasn't gonna get to it is because we were gonna do it as our first book club book, and I wasn't sure like when we were gonna read it or what. So we ended up reading it in like 2 sittings. Yesterday, me and my friends Abby and Jordy literally sat from like 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. just to finish this book. That's how good it was. We just couldn't put it down, and we're kind of doing this thing where we buddy read it all together. So sometimes we'll take it home and like read a few chapters and then come back with notes. But for the majority of books that we're reading together, we're like there and we stop after every chapter just to kind of like talk about it and talk through our theories and talk about what we like, dislike, all that kind of stuff. And it is so fun. I highly recommend it if you've never done a book club in general or never done a book club like that or read a book like that with a friend. Like I said though, I did really enjoy this book. Let me tell you a little bit about it if you don't already know. Divine Rivals is the definition of a romantasy. It is set in this world where there are different gods and different mythology, and basically the gods are at war, and it is kind of like in the World War I era, but we're in the UK. So Divine Rivals is in 3rd person, and it follows our 2 main characters, which are Roman and Iris. They are rivals at work, and they're both striving to get this columnist job at the newspaper that they both work at. So they've been rivals for a few months now, and they just don't really like each other. At least Iris doesn't like Roman. And this isn't enemies to lovers. I'll just say that now. We all love that trope in fantasy. It is the perfect one. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give it away, but basically this book was so romantic, and it was honestly just so refreshing for me. I've never read a fantasy this romantic, or even just like a romance book this romantic, like let alone the writing was just so lyrical and beautiful. I just absolutely loved Rebecca Ross's writing. Definitely want to read more books by her, and I will definitely be reading Ruthless Vows whenever it comes out. Like the second it comes out the day after Christmas. Tell me why they did it, because it would have been the perfect Christmas gift for 1. 2, I will be zooming my happy little butt to the bookstore just to get this so I can eat it up in one day, because I will in fact do that. I'm not really sure what my final rating is. Obviously it'll be right here and you've been seeing it while I've been talking about it, but I think I'm rating it in between a 4.5 and a 5 star. I don't think it's quite a 5 star just because there are so many questions that we didn't have answered. It just didn't really feel like I got everything I needed to out of it, if that makes sense, but it did make me feel a lot of feelings, and I did love the story, and I'm so excited for the second one. Okay guys, those are all 8 of the books that I read in the month of September. Let me know your thoughts on all these books down below, or if you have any books you want me to read, let me know those too. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do all those YouTube things down below as well. And yeah, I think that's it. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.